Right. Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm just going to give it about 30 seconds for people to trickle in from the waiting room, and we will get going so we can maximize our time together. You may hear some squeaky baby sounds in the background. I've got a small human accompanying me tonight. All right. Looks like everybody has been filtered in from the waiting room, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome. And if you're joining us for not your first webinar of the Area Tuesday Night Education Series, we're really glad to see you back. And if this is your first time, welcome, and you can check out all the rest of the recordings on our YouTube channel. Um, I'm really excited to welcome Richard and Daniel from SlabLab tonight. You know, we've covered a lot of topics that are in the more technical skills realm around gear and how to use specific pieces of your gear. And I'm so excited to have these folks here to talk to us a little more about what is sometimes called soft skills, but which really is a technical skill, actually, is communicating with your group. And this is something these folks have put a lot of time and energy into researching and have created a product that will help you to manage your group. So really excited to have them here to talk a little bit more about those socio-emotional skills and how important that is to having a safe and fun time in the backcountry. Um, I will put up, I think these folks I saw had a QR code at the end, but we'll also record this session. As you are watching the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A or into the chat. We'll be monitoring both of those so we can answer those questions either as we go. Daniel and Richard, I'll leave it up to you whether you want to answer as you go or answer questions at the end, but we'll have some time for questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I am going to disappear here so there's no more distracting, cute, squeaky human noises, and I'll leave it to these guys. Thank you so much for being here. We're really glad to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't think we could be more excited to be here. And we're pretty informal. I think we're happy to take questions throughout, and if there's a bunch, then we may leave them towards the end. But yeah, let's get into it.
Let's.
So we're excited to be here for tonight's installment of Aries Tuesday Night Education Series, Better Partners, Safer Trips. And we are one of the newer kids on the block for this series. We're SlabLab, hello, and we've been around 3 seasons now. We conduct qualitative research and build products that support teamwork in the backcountry. Really all of the winter backcountry sports, but we really have a focus on teamwork, as you'll hear tonight. This is Richard. He is a longtime professional avalanche educator and guide. And myself, Daniel. I'm a human-centered and product designer. And Jenny is an incredibly talented researcher from London who joined us this past season for our research and continues to guide us. That's the team. And what we really set out to do with SlabLab is bring the idea of human-centered design to the backcountry ski world. And by that, we mean backcountry skiing, splitboarding, and sledding, traveling in the mountains in winter. And what makes the sport so fascinating to me is it's very physical. There's a lot of gear. There's a lot of logistics, but it also takes all that and it's combined with an incredible amount of interpersonal decision-making and human behavior. And human-centered design is the term for a repeatable method for unpacking exactly that, human behavior, pain points, goals, and behaviors so that you can design new solutions that fit real needs. It is a type of research that's meant to come up with new stuff and support innovation. So it's a nice complement to some of the other more scientific research that goes on in the field. So what does that look like in practice? It's often divided into 3 steps. We start with inspiration, which is the core of our research. And so for these 3 seasons now, we've been talking to skiers, splitboarders, and snowmobilers from all over. Yes, we'd love more representation from both the Northeast and motorized community. So we'd love to talk with you if you can help us out with that. And we do it through long form, semi-structured interviews, observational methods, prototypes, and diary studies. And at this point, we've spoken with over 100 folks all different sports, user groups, and experience levels, genders. We really try and diversify um, for each report. So over the last 3 years, we started in the 2022 season, really looking across all of the top challenges in backcountry skiing broadly, and it was immediately apparent to us that we needed to focus in on teamwork. The number one pain point we heard right away, actually, was that people, even very experienced folks in the backcountry, have a hard time finding great partners for them. And so we've continued to focus on finding partners and forming teams in 2023 and diving even deeper into speaking up and actually what we can learn in the backcountry from the world of sexual consent and the latest thinking there in our latest report. And we love this stuff. We're committed to sharing freely each year this research. So if you want to go deeper than we are going tonight, I definitely encourage you to check this all out on our website. So after doing all that, we prototype, we build things. We don't just research. We try and we don't just do interviews. We try and take those things and put them in forms where people can actually do them, and then we can learn and iterate quickly. And we've run a number of various events and software solutions as prototypes. I'll call out the Teamwork Toolkit, which is on our website now. This is a free library that we continue to build out of very specific, very pragmatic exercises that you can try out on your next tour to improve your teamwork one at a time. And each one has a little place to give feedback so you can actually contribute back to the research. Let us know if it worked for you or not, and we'll continue to improve this. Out of all that research and prototyping, we have chosen to take one thing and really build it out and make it a fully fledged product. And that is this season, we launched a community for meeting great partners and having real discussions. Richard and I really wanted to build on all the research into teamwork that we've been doing and also build the online community that we want to see in the world for the winter backcountry community. So it includes great tools for finding folks based on what matters, risk tolerance, communication, similar goals, what courses they've taken, and also has a course on teamwork that kind of builds on some of the things we'll be talking about tonight. So if you're joining us tonight, we're happy to offer you a free trial and discount. We'll kind of share the URL with you again at the end. With that, let's get into tonight's program. Pretty to the point. We want to spend a little bit of time talking about why focus on teamwork, why that's so important. And then we're hoping to have you leave with 4 very tangible tips that you can use on your next tour, 2 on meeting new partners, and 2 on great trips with any partner. So I'll let Richard take it from here.
I love it. Thanks, Daniel. So yeah, tonight we are going to be focusing, why are we focusing on teamwork? And it really is like, we really do care. We want you to walk away from this with some actionable tips that you can use when you are out with new partners, or just improving the partnerships that you have. So let's dive into it. So we have known since about the year 2000 that human factors are what cause most avalanche accidents. Dale Atkins wrote a paper in 2000 where his big conclusion was human factors are the cause of most of these avalanche incidents. So it's been out there and we've known this for a long time, but unfortunately, just knowing this isn't enough. If we look at sort of a timeline of incidents, we saw Dale Atkins' paper in 2000. Ian McCammon put out his somewhat famous Facets paper about the same time. But 12 years later, we had the Tunnel Creek incident, and the Tunnel Creek it was a fairly famous avalanche incident. And it was chock full of human factors and cognitive biases that contributed directly to that incident. And fast forward to this year, already this year, there have been 12 fatal avalanche incidents in areas that had an avalanche advisory in the US. 100% of those have happened right where the avalanche advisory suggested if you travel into this terrain, you will be traveling into terrain that is likely or possible to trigger a fatal avalanche. So 100% of the time, the avalanche advisories are telling us where this problem is. And every one of the victims that we've had this year anyway have been experienced victims. You know, I'm not sure of their education, but they've certainly been experienced. And interesting, this year, 5 of those victims were solo skiers. And you know, it's hard to get the human factor kind of extracted from a lot of the avalanche incidents, but in at least one of the incidents that we've seen this year, the people involved had some pretty interesting things to say, where they were recognizing that they said the biggest heuristics at play for us was familiarity and comfort and an expert halo. And it just made us easier for our brain to go into cruise control. So what we're trying to do is help people kind of continue to do, quite honestly, what you learn if you take an AIRI avalanche class, which is to apply a risk framework and not have your brain go into cruise control. And mentioning that AIRI framework, there is teamwork woven throughout the entire through the entire process. There's teamwork in the planning section. There's teamwork when we're out in the field. We're supposed to be communicating with our friends. We're debriefing, and that requires teamwork and communication. There's a whole teamwork bubble in the risk management framework. So we learn all these things in these classes, but why is it that what happens in the field is so different from what we learn? So why is that? Good questions. One, learning about human factors is just not as tangible as learning about snow science or learning about DEM layers on maps. Learning to do an extended column test is somehow more satisfying than learning about how people are making decisions. So it's just not as tangible. We're not told to. We don't get daily advice on human factor decision making. We get daily advice on where the weak snow is in the snowpack. Also, we don't really have a great vocabulary for it. We have tons of vocabulary around snow. We have tons of vocabulary around terrain. We have tons of vocabulary around the weather, but we have a little vocabulary around the human factors, right? We have Ian McCammon's facets talk. A lot of people know that, but there's not a whole lot beyond that. Also, we think we can just do it. I think very few people would say, hey, I'm going to go out for the first time and dig a pit, and I'm going to run a compression test. I'm going to run extended column tests. I'm going to run propagation saw tests. And I expect that I'm going to be really good at it the first time I do it, right? We know that we go out, we do it over again, we practice it to get better. But somehow if you give someone an instruction like, hey, we're going to go out and listen to all voices, it's like, great, we should be experts right away. And that's just not the case. So we can have a learner's mindset that might help us out. And it feels awkward and formal. We heard this in the work that we've done. People have told us that they didn't want to really get into heavy communications, heavy talks with their partners because it kills the vibe, or it just feels uncomfortable, right? Or it was too formal feeling. So why teamwork? Because it really does play an outsized role on both the safety of our day and the fun of our day. That's why we're focusing on teamwork.
So we are gonna roll right into 4, hopefully very tangible tips that you can take away that kind of line up with what Richard was just saying are the reasons that we don't work on human factors enough. So the first one we want to introduce around when you're meeting new partners is this concept of a quiver of partners. We are very familiar with this with skis, right? If we're lucky enough to have a bunch of skis, then we choose the ski for that day. Whether we're going to go out and have it's for skimo, whether our plan is to ski but have lots of vert and distance involved, maybe we have an all mountain kind of ski, or whether it's a huge powder day, both the terrain that we plan on going across, like if there's a lot of vert, or the conditions, like a lot of powder, influence our choice of that ski. Um, we don't always have a ton of partners or a ton of skis, but the same mindset that we use here of lining up our partners with the day can be a really helpful sort of paradigm for thinking about your partners. So if we have, let's say, a handful of folks that we tend to go out with, like we have here on the left, and we have a bunch, then we have days in mind, different types of days that we'd like to go and have. We can start to think about how those things line up or maybe where they don't line up. So we might want, for example, a big spring objective. There may be big days that we have in mind. Other times we're going out on Saturday for a pretty casual day. Maybe we want a partner who also wants to go out for work laps and be, back at our desk showered by 9 a.m. for a call. Or maybe we want someone who's down to go out with us on a storm day or a high danger day. And so when we start to think about our partners in a quiver, we can start to really be intentional about which days make the most sense and where we're likely to have the most fun with those partners. So maybe Sally is, my go-to partner for the bigger days, or if we need to navigate some higher danger, going out in a storm, calling Sally. Lauren might live 2 doors down and love to get up early and get some laps in before work. So this idea helps us line up team conditions and terrain. And this is really the point. Even if we just have one partner that we tend to go out with, we can think about what kind of trips are going to be the most fun for us, which ones are at or outside of our comfort zone, or maybe are not setting us up to have the most fun day. And maybe there's something that I really want to do. Maybe I really want bigger days and I don't have that partner. So how can I go and purposely go and find a partner who fits that kind of day? The second tip that we've found in our research to be really helpful when you're meeting new partners is simply to be explicit, like quite direct. We heard in our interviews that most people actually find it really hard to be direct with potential new partners. Even when people don't think, have you taken Area 1 as a great litmus test, we all tend to ask it. And it turns out a lot of us are asking it as a little bit of a stand-in for other questions, like have they practiced rescue? Are they taking the sport seriously? Are they using the area framework when they go out? But we do these things like, notice how they get ready with their gear in the parking lot instead of asking the direct, explicit question. And that's what we're recommending here. These are a couple of things that we heard directly in interviews. Like it can actually feel a little bit harsh and like you're a little bit of a jerk when you do ask a direct question of a potential partner, someone you just met maybe, or that it is a lot of gut feeling, like you can't really make it a scientific checklist. But our recommendation would be to get really specific and really direct. The backcountry is kind of a different space than even a day hike in the summer, or the usual sort of social norms that apply in other places don't necessarily apply when you're going out in a sport that risks your life. So our tip here is to take the question, have you taken Area 1, and back it up and reflect for a second, what am I really looking for when I ask that? And then how can I ask about that thing quite directly and specifically instead? So here's 9 better questions, if you will, than have you taken Area 1 based on some things that we commonly hear are the reason people actually ask the question. And I'm just going to pause here. And our hope is that you can find one of these things on the left, which is what you're looking for in partners when you ask about Area 1, and maybe pick a new question from the right. And if this isn't, you don't see a reason or you don't see language that works for you, then we encourage you to take this time to write your own. But our hope is that you can walk away with one good question that you're comfortable with when meeting new partners. Oops, sorry about that. Maybe not quite enough time, but there'll be the YouTube. You can always pause and but hopefully you're able to find one that resonates.
Hey, I love it. I'm going to take over, Daniel, if that's all right.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So far we've gotten 2 great tips. We've heard about thinking about partners like a quiver. We've heard about being explicit, really speaking up and saying what we want. And those are two great tips, I think. We've got a few more for you. Our third tip, we really want to prime the team. And we heard as we spoke to a lot of our participants that they value being on teams that speak up. We also heard, though, from the same people that it's hard for them to speak up. And one of the things that really was revealed to us is that the teams that are hit it, Daniel. There we go. The teams with the most open communication spoke up early. They started talking about wanting open communication long before the trip. So when we're in the coffee shop and we're on over text talking about, hey, how are we going to behave on our trip? That's the right time to start talking about this is how I like to, this is how I like to be explicit. This is how I like to move as a team, or this is how I like to make decisions, or this is how I like to have my snack times when I'm out in the field. Great. So another aspect to priming the team is this idea of psychological safety. We think it's a useful framework for backcountry teams. We didn't come up with the idea, but we think it's really valuable and something that we can use to assess the teams that we are going out on. And we should be able to assess the teams that we're going out on, and we should feel like we can be critical with our teams. And hopefully we can improve all the teams that we're on. So pretty quickly, using psychological safety, this framework is, step one, do we have inclusion safety? Do I even feel like I'm a member of this team? Do I really belong here? Am I being made to feel like I belong? Bumping it up a notch is, do we have learner safety? Is it safe for me to ask questions? Or do I get hassled or talked down to or mansplained if I ask a question? The third step is contributor safety. Do I feel like I can share my ideas? Right? And hopefully we're on teams where we can share ideas. And then ultimately, do we have what we call challenger safety? Can I actually question the ideas of other people on the team? And will that be a successful interaction on this team? So we have found that to increase the psychological safety for teams, really the best way is to start early, as early as you can. Prime the team that you're going to be asking questions. Tell the team that you're going to be challenging things. Ask your teammates if it's okay if you can ask questions, and think about psychological safety as you're moving through your teams. When we're doing that, we're going to want to find phrases that work for us, and we shouldn't expect these to just roll right off the tongue the first time we do it. And here's a couple of different contexts that we've come up with. If you're the new person on the team and you're with a more experienced, or with if you're the more experienced partner on the team and you're with new people, something you might want to say is something like, hey, I know I've been doing this longer, but you are part of this team, right? You're creating that space, that safety on the team for the new person. I'd love your thoughts today, especially if you disagree with me, or if you're the less experienced partner. Hey, gang, I'm new to all this. Is it cool if I bounce what I'm thinking off of you? Can you help me learn? Is a good way to start communicating with your teammates. And, if you're with new partners, even if you're all really experienced, we still need to set the tone early. It's like, hey, as we're getting to know each other, is it cool if we're extra vocal about how we like to do things? Can I tell you how I like to do things? You tell me how you like to do it. We'll figure it out as we go. Chances are the more we share, the better our teams will be. And for our last tip today, we really want to give you the idea of right sizing your process. And this is really near and dear to my heart. As we talk to people in our work, people had a lot of really interesting things to say about how it felt uncomfortable to use processes, whether it was their trip planning or checking in the field or debriefing. They thought it seemed really heavy. And I think that's because people have one idea about how big these processes should be, and we don't have a sense that we can scale them up and down. So one way to think about right sizing these processes is to think about our uncertainty for the given day. And there are a handful of inputs that we think about with that are going into our uncertainty for the day. We have uncertainty around our team, we have uncertainty around the terrain, we have uncertainty around the conditions, and we can have high or low uncertainty around each of those. And then as we recognize whether we have higher or lower uncertainty, we can scale up or down several processes. And those processes, as we alluded to, can include the planning, the communication in the field, and our debriefs at the end of the day. Sweet. And here's a quick example. Like if I'm going out with a friend and it's somebody I know, I go skiing with them all the time. It's in conditions that I'm familiar with and in terrain that I'm familiar with. I still write everything down. I come up with a written plan, but man, it doesn't have a whole lot of words. It's just a few words. I'm making sure we're having the conversations, but I'm not really recording a lot. But if I go out and I recognize like, oh boy, there's a new person on the team, someone I've never skied with, the conditions are unusual, or maybe they're, and unusual doesn't necessarily mean more dangerous, or hazardous, but maybe they are. If I'm with different teammates, interesting conditions, new terrain, my uncertainty is higher. I'm going to end up with a more scaled up trip plan. So some days it's going to be more involved. Some days we think it can be scaled down quite a bit and still be effective. And another process is our debrief. And this isn't so much about uncertainty we find, but maybe about how much time we've allotted. And one of the things that we've heard is that people think that debriefs are heavy. We heard that people think that they are only needed if something goes wrong, or that they take a lot of time. And we can have really fast debriefs, and we should be debriefing our successful days. We should be debriefing the days where things go really well and try to find out, hey, why did it go well? Can we repeat this? And if we only have time for one or two questions, maybe let's keep it simple. Hey, what did you like about the day? Or what would you do differently if we started over? Or, hey, how did you feel about the moment that we did this or when this happened? If we did it again, how would you do it? So that's sometimes they can be really brief. Other times, if I'm going out and having burritos with my partner, it's like, let's get the Airy Field Book out and actually follow the full prompts and see if we can start connecting the dots between, hey, what was the weather like and how did that affect the snow? And why did we have good snow at this part of the day and worse snow at that part of the day? And really turn that experience into wisdom and knowledge for the future. Really think about what the avalanche problems are doing, really think about how our plan was put together today, what was good about it, what could have been better, and what did we do out in the field that could have been better, or maybe that we did really well, right? So right sizing the debrief can certainly happen. It doesn't have to be a heavy experience.
And
Great.
short and sweet. We really want to make it memorable and let you walk away with hopefully these four things. So if nothing else, we'd love if folks remember that your team is worth the attention. It's key to your fun and safety. And human skills, previously known as soft skills, take practice too. They are key and we don't necessarily get them right the first time. And I want to highlight, one of the reasons we showed so many actual sentences that you can use for some of these is because that's a big part of the practice, is finding the right way to say it in your own language. So those tips again, think of partners as a quiver, be explicit, be quite direct with your partners, prime the team, say what you want ahead of time, and then right size your process. So we hope that this encourages you to kind of walk away with some new language and some new exercises that you can do on your next trip. Appreciate y'all spending the time with us this evening. If you'd like to go deeper into any of this, I mean, we're easy to reach. Love talking to folks on our website. All the research, again, is there for free. And if you're here joining us tonight, you can use slablab.co/Airy. We'd love to have you in our partner network, and you can use this for a free trial and 50% off.
Hey, how about that?
With that, love to take any questions you might have.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, while folks are, if folks have questions, we'll just hang out here for a second in case people want to drop those in. But I will also share the code again in the recording follow-up email. So if you don't get it down now, if you're like starting dinner or doing double duty, getting kiddos ready for bed, and don't get a chance to write that down, I'll also go ahead and send that to folks here in a bit. Oh, good question here. We've got somebody wondering if you can demo the partner finding site, like if you can demo the platform a little bit, if you're willing to screen share and give us a little tour.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Richard,
love that.
you do a lot of onboardings with folks. Do you want to show folks around?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. Give me 1 second to queue it up. Maybe maybe if somebody else has a question, I can get this queued up and then run through it. Oh, Tyler. So I don't know if Tyler is asking a great question. Do you have any good stories about partners you opted not to pair with again? Um, I wonder if I wonder in the chat if we could find stories from folks that are on the call. I have a story or two, but any good stories where you've literally said, "Hey, this is not working for me."
We may have to, Daniel, I think you may have to change the permissions on the chat
Oh, okay.
so that participants can chat with everyone.
Oh,
While we're doing that, I'll go ahead and answer that question too, if that's cool. So Tyler asked, do we have any good stories about partners you opted not to pair with again? Yeah, I met some friends, backcountry ski tour people I knew, and we got to the trailhead, and one of my friends, as we're going through our departure check, one of my friends said, "Hey, it's a long approach, and it's going to be a long time before we get to the NAR. So I'm just going to keep my beacon in my backpack until we get to steeper terrain because it's uncomfortable." And I was like, sweet. Not only am I not going to pair with you again, I'm going to walk away from this trip. I at that moment I was like, ooh, I think I've seen this movie before. I know how it ends. It doesn't end well. There's going to be like 10 other things that that will probably not be awesome. So I opted out of the whole tour right there at the trailhead. So
I wish I had a juicy story. I think usually I start with a small tour, and if it doesn't go well, then it's like if it's a friend, I mean, we might go out someplace where it's simple terrain in the actual 8 scale, or and really low danger levels, simple conditions, mostly casual stuff. But I don't think I've ever like not skied with somebody a second time.
mm.
I do think I just dropped a story in the chat, just a not a very juicy story, but I will say I think it's important to remember some of the most fun people to ski with inbounds or to ride with maybe in non-avalanche terrain are folks that like I have some friends that I love and have a great time going out with that I would not want to ski in the backcountry with. So I think someone being a really awesome person, a really good friend, a really fun partner in a lot of ways doesn't necessarily always translate, whether it's because they have unsafe habits or because they're just not the right fit for you in that regard. And you got a lot of great questions to ask folks tonight from Richard and Daniel that I think will help you suss that out as well.
What I'm hearing is that you're thinking about that person as part of your quiver. Like maybe they're great for going to the resort, but not a great backcountry partner. And I
Right.
think that's a great example of how thinking about partners as how they fit into our quiver is really, really helpful because it doesn't disqualify them from being a partner, across the board. It simply means, hey, I'm not going to go on this kind of trip with you. I am going to go on this kind of trip with you. I think that's I think that's awesome. Dan, you want me to run through?
If you have it, otherwise I brought it up. I'm happy
Yeah,
to
I've got it right
screen
here.
share. Okay.
I've got it. Let's see what we have. So this is the SlabLab Partner Finding Network in action, and there's we can look at here's my profile. You create a profile, and the interesting thing about SlabLab that sets it apart from other 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 like social media outlets is that it is finely tuned just for backcountry skiing. So in my profile, there's a little bit of headline about me, where I live, how old I am, some text fields about you get a little idea about what I'm like as a partner, text fields about what I like in my partners, how much experience I have, how much little text field about my experience, what an ideal day looks like for me, what my planning style is like, what kind of avalanche classes I've taken, what kind of first aid classes I've taken, what my fitness level is. And these are all the questions that we heard from people in our research. People said, this is what I want to know about partners. So that's why we put it in there. So we can go into the network and one of the we have spaces for different states. We have a California space. There's a Tahoe space inside the inside of California, and I can go into the Tahoe section and see what people are talking about in the world of Tahoe. I
Yeah,
can
do you want to show how you can use all those profile fields to, yeah, go
Yeah, we're
find
gonna
folks
do
in the
that.
directory?
Yeah, so I can also access the member directory, and this is what we think is really, really valuable. Like we really want people to slow down and be really mindful about how they're finding partners. We'd like to, like I know that there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, I'm available. I'm available to ski the cross on Saturday. Who wants to come? And while that can be effective, what we would like to see is people being a little more thoughtful about their partnerships, about really moving their partner finding to seasonal preparation. Um, so we can look in the SlabLab member directory, and I can start filtering. And I'm going to filter for I'm going to filter for people who are split boarders, and I'm going to filter for people who um, their riding ability is advanced. See what that comes up with. And I'm going to filter for people who, let's see, what else should I put in here? Maybe people who have taken a level 1 avalanche class. And I'm going to filter for people who have what else should I filter for? Availability. Maybe people who are available on weekdays. And what am I looking for? Maybe first aid training. So I want to find somebody who has taken a woofer class, see if that gives us anybody. Great. So that narrows my search down to, so I did a pretty detailed search of of the whole directory to try to find people that are really the kind of person that I want to go ski with. And now I've got, 8 or so people in here, and I can look at each of these. I'm like, oh, here's this guy, Jesse. He's in South Lake Tahoe. He's a split boarder. I'm learning what's interesting to him because he's filled out these text fields. His ideal days, bluebird, 6 inches of fresh pow, well-spaced trees, 2,500 vert. Man, that sounds awesome. I'm kind of digging him. He's taken a wilderness first aid, wilderness first responder classes. I can maybe learn a little bit more about him from the posts that he's made. And then if I feel like Jesse's interested, I can message him directly through SlabLab so I don't have to give up any of my personal information to reach out and see if we might be a good fit. So that is, I don't know, that's like a pretty fast run through of the SlabLab partner network. Is there anything else in there, Daniel, we should highlight?
I would add one thing, and then we had another question come in, but I think what's neat about it is we've done a lot of work and reported on how folks meet partners today. And with Facebook groups, which is kind of the most common way online, the thing is you make a post and you hope that good partners see it. And what we're trying to do here is create something where you can find folks that are a good fit for you anytime. You can post in these spaces in your region, but you can also find folks that you think are describing things in their full backcountry profile that match what feels like a good fit for you, and just reach out to them anytime. So that's how we're a lot of the value. And Richard is showing that we also try and really foster, we moderate it. We try and foster a environment where there's no dumb questions. You can ask things, you can get real feedback. We can have discussions around teamwork.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, we, should I might turn this question over. Richard, was there something else you wanted to show, or I might,
I think that's a pretty good run through of the partner network.
Garrett asks, have you seen any trend on the effect of a group size on the success of a backcountry ski day? I'll let you take this one, Richard. I'll note that we have seen that last year we did a little section on some of the factors that either make it harder to speak up on a group or make it easier to speak up on a group. That's where our tip about priming the team and actually saying that you want everyone to speak up ahead of time actually results in people speaking up when the time comes. And one of the factors that we found and there's a bunch of other research on this too, but can decrease the ability to speak up is group size. So I don't know that we have a specific number for you. We haven't gotten that quantitative on it, but in a large group, it's that much harder to speak up, register opinion, feel like you have the sort of social safety to do so.
Yeah, and just backing that up, I can say, anecdotally going on a lot of ski tours with a lot of different size groups. Um, if we want to listen to every voice on the team, man, that's hard to do when there's a lot of voices to listen to. It's a lot easier to really listen to every voice if there's, only three or four or five voices to listen to. And I've seen lots of successful days happen because we were able to have good communication. I feel it was because we were able to have good communication because throughout the day it wasn't onerous. It was like, hey, who thinks does anybody see anything wrong with doing this? Oh, and one person is like, yeah, I'm not quite sure about this or that. I'm like, great, we can explain that. Let's see if we can manage that. And that same person might not have spoken up if there were, 7 or 8 people there. And especially if there was like a very sendy voice, somebody who's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be sick. As soon as that happens, the voice of someone who probably has something valuable to say that might not be that might be a little more conservative, they're not going to speak up. So, so I've seen it a bunch, but it's pretty anecdotal.
Do you mind if I just chime in super quick?
Please.
Um, on an Airy 1 course, typically what we're very careful about reminding people that if you go out solo, that totally removes your safety net, right? So if you're out there by yourself, you don't even have a partner who has a chance of digging you out of an avalanche should you be caught. So want to make sure that people are very aware of that. But typically we say a group size of anywhere from 2 to 5, with the sweet spot being right around 3 or 4. 5 can be kind of cumbersome. As these guys are saying, it can be kind of tough to speak up in a group of 5. Whereas if you've only got 2 people, if it's just you and your partner, that's a lot of responsibility on one person. And, if you've taken an avalanche rescue course or done some rescue practice on an Airy 1, you probably know it's a lot of work to move that much snow. And so having a third person can be really awesome. That 3 to 4 can be kind of a sweet spot. And there is research that backs this up, that tends to be um, what's considered, statistically the quote unquote safe is that back up what Daniel and Richard are saying. That's kind of what we at Airy would say is a good convention.
Love it.
It's even the suggested group size is actually in the beginning of your field book. They got it right there.
Wow. Maybe we should. Yeah, I like that. Hey, do y'all see the awesome question that Kate asked? Kate is asking, how do you accommodate for having extremely introverted people in your group? Boy, that is it. My take at that, Kate, is a couple of things. One, again, be on an appropriate sized group. I'm a big fan of the area risk management framework. I use it all the time, and it starts when I'm planning my trip, who's on my team, and get to know the people that are on my team and find out, like, hey, this person is really introverted. Great. I welcome that, but I also ask them to be involved. And we have some tools in our teamwork toolkit that are pretty specific to that. Like we have a one of the tools, one of the cards is what we call no abstaining, which is as obvious as it sounds. That if you're gonna be on the team, we're gonna make a decision. We have to hear from everyone. We've got to hear from. I want to hear what's going on. I value what I talk a lot, but I value what everyone has to offer. Um, and I think that if we're building good teams, if we're building good teams and we're really intentional about building the team and knowing who's on the team, which is what it's right there in the planning section of the area risk management framework. If we're really intentional about that, we find out that, oh yeah, this person is an introvert, and it takes a little more to get them to speak up. They probably have good things to say. We can find ways to encourage them to hear their voice. Try to figure out where the guardrails are for making that happen without making anyone feel uncomfortable. And I think that happens, back to the idea about group size. I think that happens more effectively in like that sweet 3 to 5 person size group.
Yeah, it's a good question. A couple other things that have come up across interviews as trends that I can speak to quickly that can just kind of move it in your favor, make it that much easier to speak up. Obviously the big lever is choosing who you go out with, making sure you're comfortable with them. There are a couple of well, if another is travel style. If you have agreed to travel close together, have agreed on check-ins, that means that you don't have to ask someone to wait up, right? Like you're right there. There's a lower bar to asking. If you've agreed to make a check-in point when you get to the top of a ridge, let's say, or whatever the case is, when you're about to leave tree line, then you have a built-in time that is like, we're going to talk at this time. And that could really be just, create the space. It's that much more helpful for someone who's maybe a little bit more introverted. Um, There's a couple just also a couple mindset things. Recognizing if you go in, understanding that checking in if you're feeling like there's a scarcity of ski days. Just recognizing that you want a long career, not necessarily for this to be the best day of that career. That sort of mindset can lower the bar and just make it that much easier to put the brakes on something.
I love it.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Emma makes a great point in chat. Doing small tours before big tours, getting a great way to get to know a partner before you take more risk with them. And we tend to call those coffee dates. Richard's very eloquent about we put a lot we do a lot more with dating. We tend to have, someone who can call us and tell us there's an emergency just in case we need to leave a date early. We just go for one drink instead of dinner. There's all these things in the dating world we do to start small and keep ourselves safe. And so that sort of idea of starting with a coffee date is something that's really helpful in backcountry as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, if another one comes in, we're happy to hang out and chat more. And if not, we're just Richard at slablab.co and Daniel at, and we'd happy to talk about this kind of stuff anytime.
Yeah, we love talking about this stuff. So thank you to everybody that was here tonight. Thank you to everybody that asked questions. And if you have more questions, if you find this interesting, or if you find that there are holes in what we're doing where you can help us do a better job, it's I I hate to sound like I live my life by the ARI risk management framework, but prepare, plan, ride, debrief, prepare, plan, give a webinar, debrief, prepare, plan, run a SlabLab, debrief. We model ourselves as being people um, that can stand up to being, having our actions debriefed, and we end up being better for it. So reach out to us anytime. We're happy to have the conversations.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel and Richard. This was great, great info. And thanks, folks, for your really engaged questions and for being committed to furthering your avalanche education. It's really awesome to see people here and excited to learn more. So we'll get this recording up on our YouTube channel within the next week, and then I'll send the recording around along with that discount link and really encourage folks to check out SlabLab and see how you can find some partners and also do a great job managing your group in and out of the backcountry. So I typically am pretty set in my ways and have my own, my partners that I go out with, but I've been really impressed by this SlabLab platform and I'm on there now and certainly would check it out, trying a tour with a new SlabLab partner. So definitely encourage everybody to try that out with the discount that these folks are offering. It's a great way to find some folks that you can work well with in the backcountry. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you being here and offering the discount and for all the great information.
Yeah, thank you guys. Y'all are all awesome.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, folks. See you soon.